Alright, so we're going to start with color. Hopefully we have enough time. So I'm going to start with the reduction. So color reduction. So with color reduction, you could be using the same block over and over again. And basically, it's kind of like doing a Ukrainian Easter egg. Anyone's done one before? If not, that means nothing. But sometimes people get. Basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna print your. What you get to carve out anything you want to keep white first, and then you're gonna print your lightest color. Then go back and then carve out anything you want that lightest color, and then print the next color on top, and then cut anything you want to keep of that next color, that second color.
Okay, just said Patrick, you lost me.
Right.
Okay.
I'll go through. So my example here.
You print the lightest color,
So this is the robin I did.
right? So you printed the yellow.
Yep. Here. My first layer was this.
Wow. So, but you have to do a different print or a different.
Nope, you're always going back to the same block. So you're reducing the block. So when you're finished, you're not going to have very much on your block. It's going to be the final layer that's going to be on your block.
So on that one,
Yeah.
you carved what's white.
Yeah, so whatever's white here, I carved out first.
Okay.
And then I printed the yellow. With reduction, because you're just using one block, you have to print out your addition. So you can't just print one yellow and start carving for the next color, because then you won't have an addition. And you probably want to make extra, because things will happen as you print. Your registration might be off, and maybe you mis-ink your block. So if you do like an addition of 8, you might want to do like 12, depending on how confident you're feeling. So I printed the yellow. And on top of the yellow, I printed this. So it's paint, but not really. It's a transparent red. So with the colors that we have, there's a transparent base. So on the transparent red sits on top of the transparent yellow. I'll get orange because the two mix. So you can control the transparency of the color. And then I kept carving out, so I carved out the orange. Anything I want to keep orange, I carve out. And I printed a transparent purple on top of that orange to create brown. So you're building up layers. So you're basically cutting, printing, and building up your image through layering. I'm going to do a demo. I'm going to do 2 colors. So hopefully with this, me talking and doing the demo. And then on top of the purple, I did a green, or turquoisey type color to get my final image.
So you have to keep going back into your block.
Yep.
To remove.
What you printed. So when I did the yellow,
Right.
It's your brain like.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
my brain,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
Do you
brain.
have perfect registration every time?
for me,
Do you have perfect registration every time?
not every time.
Okay. So there, it's mostly, from what I can see, it's the beak and the eye because it maintains white all the way.
Yep.
through.
So you can see it in the final image.
Right.
See the white
Okay.
there.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then next time you removed what would be.
What she wanted to stay yellow.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. So when you combine that next color with that, you get that orange. But I cut out.
So the bits that are yellow, sorry, the bits that are yellow there, you have carved out.
Yeah.
And so they have remained yellow because you put them.
So you're always, so you're cutting, then printing, then cutting away anything you want to keep that color, then you print your next color, do some more cutting, and print it. So you're always going back to the same block. So you're reducing the block. So by the time you're finished, your block will only have the last layer. So sometimes, depending on how much you got for your last layer, there might be not very much on your block.
Like if you just, there was one red highlight left or
Yeah.
something. Or-
Then everything else will be carved except for that red highlight or black highlight or whatever. Generally speaking, you go from your lightest color to your darkest color. There are exceptions, but usually that's how it works.
So you're very used to doing this. Now, when you started out,
Yes.
did you sort of write out what you were going to do?
Yeah.
Like,
Plan it out.
yeah,
A little pencil sketch or pencil crayon sketch.
yeah,
Tell me with my colors.
okay.
Yeah.
So you'd have a sketch and you kind of write down what's gonna be what.
Yeah.
What you're gonna remove and.
Have you ever screwed up?
Yeah.
You should have said never.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I'll do a quick demo.
Like I heard, Michelangelo was carving something and he got close to being finished and found that there was a flaw in the marble, so he just threw his hammer at it, so I.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's the general idea behind the reduction print. The advantages is the restoration's pretty easy because you're always using the same block over and over again. So you don't have to worry about having blocks that are the same size for each color. And you get to layer colors. Kind of nice, like working that way. Disadvantage is if you make a mistake, you can't go back
Right.
because you're always using that same block, unless you use a lot of filler. Try not to use filler, but. So that wolf over there, that was done the same way.
It is that on,
That's on shintoy paper.
it is,
So that yellow color is the washi paper.
right.
But on top of that, start off with this light blue. And then you carved away anything you want to give that light blue. And I printed a medium blue. And then the dark blue, and then these grays. This one,
Nice color palette.
this is from the first class I taught at the university. I had to limit their color palette to the process colors, so yellow, red or orange, blue and black. What we were looking at earlier, the owl and little birds,
Wow.
also a reduction.
Okay, so that looks like it has a shimmer to it.
That's the ink that they used. So
Oh, what kind of ink would that have been, do you know?
it's a Vanson rubber-based ink. So the same ink we use for lithography.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That looks like it takes years to master.
It can, yeah.
So where would we get the wood from? Like, is the wood where we?
We can use lino, you don't have to use wood. So I have some here, or I can buy some from Hues. Sintra, wood, I mean, whatever you want to use for your block.
But that's why you put the back on.
Yeah, back helps because as you carve, like if you can imagine if this was started done on unbacked lino, this would be quite wobbly towards the end because this is cut out.
Right.
And then when you're trying to register, it can be a little bit tricky because it's gonna move around more. So if you back it, it stays rigid for the whole time you're printing. All right. So usually you don't go this fast, and your image won't look this rough. But I'll just carve something quick. Let's do an owl. So the first thing you want to do is carve anything you want to keep white, or the color of the paper. You don't have to. Your first layer might be a flat of color, like a rectangle of yellow, if you don't want any whites. But So for reduction, there's a bit of planning, and then there's, as you go along, you kind of instinctively look at your print and then make decisions. So it's kind of a combination of both, which is why I kind of like working that way. It started out as an owl, and now it's something else. You can see in the Picasso lino cuts of the Remy, most of them are done this way. He preferred working with reduction. He started off with multi-block, so each color would be a separate block. He found it very tedious, and it does take a lot of work to do multi-block. He claims to have invented reduction, but that's kind of Picasso for you a little bit. There is evidence that reductions was around before he started using it. He refined it, and he did a lot with it. He experimented a lot with it.
Now, did Picasso do his own prints? I thought someone
No,
else did.
he worked with a master printer. Yeah,
Yeah.
he worked with a master printer.
So it would be like if he worked with you.
Kinda, yeah.
I always like to look to the expert and get, same with his pottery.
Mhm.
All right. Well, so I carved out anything I want to keep white. In terms of your image, getting your image on your block, I probably wouldn't use the chalk paper or the Conte paper, because when you start doing multiple colors, the Conte is going to rub off. But also get into your colors. So if you're working with like delicate yellows and stuff, and you have like red Conte, then you get Conte in your ink. So I'd recommend doing a transfer of the oil wintergreen, or else if you draw on your block with pencil crayon, the pencil crayon won't transfer.
As opposed to like a
Like
regular pencil.
Yeah, regular pencil. Some of those back pencil I've done here, they kept it light, but if your pencil's heavy enough, it will transfer. And that could dirty up your ink.
Pencil crayons are a little bit more waxy. So
It's waxy, it doesn't really transfer. So usually as I'm working on my next layer, I'll take the pencil crayon and I'll kind of dry out what I want to carve before I start carving. That kind of help use as a guide. That's what I did for this one. I just drew directly on the block with pencil crayon. And as I kept on working on the image, I'd go back and kind of draw out what I want to carve. Just keep track of what I'm doing. Not so much on this one. So I get to use color now. So part of the class, you get to use these inks that we provided for you. So we got the process primary colors, so yellow, red, blue. For the red, we have a cool red and a warm red, so that should help out. We also have an opaque white and a transparent base. So you can control the transparency and opacity of your color using the base. You can also make your colors more opaque if you use the opaque white. So the colors will sit on top of each other, which is kind of a characteristic of this type of printing. It can be a bit challenging if you wanted like really pure colors that sit on top of each other. Let's say you did like a green landscape, but you wanted, so you did the green first, and then you wanted like a bright blue sky. That's really going to be hard to print on top of the green because you got blue sitting on top of green. So you might have to add a lot of white to the blue to make it kind of stand out more, or else kind of plan it out so you print the blue first, then add like a yellow on top to change the green. So you have to kind of plan out a little bit. But keep in mind that the previous color will affect your next color. So color ink, you basically apply the ink the same way as you do with black ink. You just use color. Grab some nice.
Ruler. muddy probably.
So we'll probably start with the yellow, orange.
Are you using
No,
this?
go ahead. Are you cleaning up or are you printing again?
I need to clean up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's getting kind of quick. for me,
Yes.
so- Unless something else.
Oh, good, thank you.
How's everyone's color theory?
Good.
Black and white's a lot simpler, but hey, I like the color.
But keep clean. Or if you don't scrape it.
It'll be really hard to get off. Yeah.
So I'm mixing color. So I got a little bit of red to the yellow, and then some transparent base.
Did you put the base into all the colors, or is it for opacity?
No, if you want to keep your colors really opaque, I wouldn't add any transparent base. If you're planning to do a transparent color though, start with the base and then add your color to the base rather than the other way around. Because if you have an opaque color and you're trying to make it really transparent, by adding lots of base to it, you'll have a big pile of ink you have to deal with. But start with the base first, then you have less ink waste.
And I guess because you're printing everything at the same time, you're not worried about like if like I just did 5 prints.
Yep.
But like for you, you're printing them all at the same time, so your color will be consistent.
Yep.
Yeah.
The mix of color goes orange. So it's a good idea to test out your color. So when ink is in a big pile like this, it looks darker than it will print. So if you grab a scrap piece of paper and grab your palette knife and do a drawdown, so just I'll mix that better. I looked a little bit later. Again, when you're printing a thin layer of ink.
That's a nice color.
Yeah.
So, it's just, what did you say, just a yellow, primer yellow?
Yep, and a warm red, just a little bit of a warm red. But the inking's the same. When you're working with color, you want to make sure everything's clean. With this group, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you have a 20, 30 students all at once printing, it can get a little tricky. So, but it's not a bad idea to check out, make sure everything's clean before you start.
I think it's fine. It was on here. This is just. Oh no, that's fine. That's scrap.
Is that scrap?
Yeah, that was like yeah. Yeah, that was just a picture I was working with.
If you're working with transparent colors, as you roll, you want to kind of roll in different directions and fan out your rolls. if you roll in the same direction all the time, you'll get roller marks. Just because we're using small little sprayers. So I'm going to use the same registration system I showed you earlier. I've taped down the L-shaped piece of mapboard down on the table so it doesn't move. And I've put down my block on the inside of the L. My pins are set up from before. If you want even tighter registration, you can take a roll of, I think I can't stand up the camera.
Is that painter's tape?
Pardon me?
Is that painter's
Yeah,
tape?
painter's tape. So if you take an X-Acto knife and cut into a few layers of the tape, carefully. And then peel it so you got a thick piece of tape. And then you can take this thick piece of tape and you can put it on the other side of the block, on either side, the top and the bottom, just to secure it. Like so. And that's not going to move.
How did you stick that there?
That's just painter's tape.
Just because it's thick.
It's
so
thick. It's thick.
Right.
It's a little bit thicker, it catches the edge of the block. If I just use a single piece of tape, it's not really good. And then paper. And zipper.
You want my stick?
It's not a bad idea to do a newsprint proof first. But to speed the demo along, I'm just going to go with my good paper.
Especially when you have the registration so well done.
Orange. Then you go ahead and print your edition. I'm just going to move on and start out the next color. Any questions so far?
How long do you have to let that dry?
Good question. Ideally, overnight.
Okay.
If you were kind of in a rush to meet a deadline, you could do two layers, one after the other. Beyond that kind of 2-layer limit, the ink will start kind of peeling off the paper onto your block. Sometimes the paper will tear because it'll be kind of stuck to the block, so I try to avoid doing that. So ideally, let it sit overnight, then you can print. Usually you need time to carve anyways, so yeah. This one I did in one day, but
So now, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
how did you do that then? Like,
just thin layers, just like making sure your ink is nice and thin. Yeah, mostly just controlling how much ink you use. So it's important you keep your ink nice and thin. You don't want to over ink, otherwise you get like an ink sandwich, they'll never dry.
How much of an addition did you have for that one?
I have like maybe 3 or 4 that are completed. This was meant for a demo. Remember the blizzard we had in 2007?
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
2007?
Yeah.
This is my blizzard bird. I was stuck at the university, so I did a robin.
Oh,
That's awesome. I mean, not awesome, but you were just stuff.
I remember that was,
Yeah,
I do, we all do.
yep. And then I remember walking home after in the blizzard, because
Yeah.
I should have stayed overnight, but I didn't. I live across the bridge. But anywho.
Crazy.
You made it.
I made it. I'm here. So when you're finished, you can strip off some ink with some newsprint, and then you can start carving your next layer. No.
So anything you want to stay orange is now what you're carving away.
Yeah. Let's go quickly clean the block before I start carving again. Yeah, carve it in.
So you're carving the things you want to stay orange.
So you want to keep orange, I'm carving away.
There is. Yeah.
And then you put your next color. Any ideas?
Blue.
Blue. We'll do like a transparent blue. See what happens.
Where do you buy your plexiglass?
The bookstore at the university sells plexiglass.
Okay, this is-
You can also get it from like Home Depot. So I don't not sure how small they sell it, but they could cut it.
Cause you wouldn't just use the Mylar paper, like it's better to use the plexiglass.
Yeah, or if you
Yeah.
have it like a dedicated table, you can get a piece of glass
Mhm.
and use that. That's what I have at home in my studio at the university. So. Alrighty. So, need more tables, please?
So how true is that blue? Like it's pretty dark. Is that transparency or white?
This transparency. Do you want opaque light or transparent?
No, I was just curious.
This piece.
Cause the old little speedball blue I used for my practice paint at home. It wasn't very good, but it looked like navy blue on the jar, but then inside it was like
More of a-
very indigo.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's dark. What was your paper you registered on?
Yep.
Oh. Oh, but I guess you're printing on top
That's
of
pretty
orange.
bad.
Yeah.
Understood that. Transparency to it. So the transparency is like that. So we'll see what happens when that sits on top of the orange.
I should know what that is.
Complementary colors. Brown. It should make it a brown. It should.
I was wondering when I was going to use all my nitrile gloves.
Yep.
Now I know.
It's like a ghost, but that's okay. There. So again, we're going to use the same registration system. If you don't want to use pins or don't have access to pins, the other way to register, basically you take your block, you put it face down and line it up with the image that's already on your paper, and then you have to flip it over to print it. So,
There we go.
yeah. So. Oops. You can see how tight the registration is with the pins.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah.
See what happens when that blue sits on top of the orange?
Mhm.
You can really play around with the transparency of color. If you go back and then do another color. This might be like. So that's reduction.
Now you're going to dig out whatever you don't want to be brown.
So anything I want to keep brown, I'm gonna cut it carve away. And then put another color, like maybe a purple or a black or something. For darks.
Right, if you wanted to do like 5 colors, that layer should have been like a yellow or a red.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have to think about your color, how many layers you want. But you can do as many as, I don't know, 10 or 12, or you can do 2 or.
At some point, I guess if it's dry in between, it wouldn't get muddy, or
Right.
would it?
Well, if there's transparency,
Right.
it depends if you're adding the transparency.
Yeah.
There's the brown.
Yeah.
That's quite the process, if you're waiting a day and then we're taking time to carve
Yeah.
the extra layers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's color printing.
Yeah. It's so satisfying when it's done, I'm sure.
It is nice. Yeah.
No.
Are there any questions on the reduction printing? I'm recording the video so you can watch it again.
Yeah, that's good.
Good.
It does take a little bit
It's
to wrap your head
amazing
around.
the color, right, that it turns into.
Yeah.
It's almost unbelievable.
Mhm. But next week I'll show you how to use multiple blocks for printing. So each color would have its own separate block. So traditional Japanese prints, they're done that way. And also puzzle piece or jigsaw, where you cut up a block, ink up each piece separately, then bring them together. I'll show you that next week. So, part 1 of color.
It seems to me that there should be like three parts of this.
Yep.
And then, yeah,